Apart from the fact that both of them came into existence at around the same time, both involved the bloody bifurcation of lands on the basis of religion, and both were initially overwhelmingly dominated by parties from the left half of the political spectrum. Another strangely common theme in India and Israel's modern history has been that of a demographic crisis. The two countries are both home to large Muslim minority populations, which have not integrated well into mainstream society. They pose an ever-present demographic danger which could undermine the nation's defenses from within. In India, Muslims have risen from 9.8% of the population in 1951 to 14.2% in 2011 and possibly about 15% today. They have shown a consistent pattern of outbreeding the majority Hindu population. Until this day, the pattern of differential fertility between the two communities exists, meaning there will be more and more Muslims relative to the number of Hindus in India in the foreseeable future. Israel found itself in a similar predicament vis-a-vis its Arab Muslim minority, whose population went up from 8.47% in 1950 to 17.16% by 2010. But in recent years, this rapid rise in the Muslim minority's population in Israel has largely stagnated, and in 2019, Muslims had only marginally increased their share of the population to 17.8%. So what changed? How did Israel effectively put the brakes on impending demographic catastrophe? Well, the answer is complicated. First off, there is a group called Haredi or Ultra-Orthodox Jews, which has an incredibly high fertility rate of 6.7. This group only made up 1% of the Israeli population in 1948, so it could obviously not have much of an impact in the initial post-independence decades. But by 2010, their percentage of the population had risen to 8%, and by 2017 to 12%, and it is exactly this critical mass which has helped them become a sort of demographic shield which plays a huge role in bringing the average Jewish fertility rate nearly on par with that of Muslims. In recent decades, the unusually high fecundity of ultra-Orthodox Jews has also had a sort of ripple effect in raising the fertility of non-Haredi Jews, who may be secular or just moderately religious. According to statistics released by the Israel Democracy Institute in 2017, the non-Haredi Jewish fertility rate stood at 2.4, which is very high compared to other developed countries, where it tends to hover around 1.3 to 1.8. It is also higher than the fertility rate of Hindus in India, which stood at 2.1 in 2015-16 according to the National Family and Health Survey, and has probably only fallen since then. So a critical mass of high fertility ultra-Orthodox Jews combined with rising fertility in non-Orthodox Jews have both played a significant role in halting and likely soon reversing a demographic crisis for Israeli Jews. Of course, another factor which gives Jewish numbers some push is Aliyah, or the immigration of Jews from abroad into Israel, but it remains a relatively minor factor compared to the previous two fertility-linked ones we discussed. Now that we have talked about the why part of Israeli Jews' demographic robustness, it is also important to know the how part of it, to comprehend the means of achieving it. Before we proceed, it is necessary to mention that understanding the underlying reasons responsible for a group's given fertility rate is not an exact science, and there are many aspects of it that we may not be able to fully decipher. That being said, we can still do our best to come to a few reasonable theories based on logic, common sense, and some hard data. To begin with, Israel has a fairly generous child benefit system. Under their latest rates, Israeli parents start receiving 152 shekels or about 3,300 rupees per month once they have their first child. 192 shekels or about 4,200 rupees per month for every subsequent child up to the fourth child, and again the equivalent of 3,300 rupees per month for the fifth child onwards. So a family with 5 children would receive a sum amounting to more than 19,000 rupees per month just through the direct child allowances. On top of this, families who are too poor to support themselves also receive income support or income supplement benefits. For example, a couple between the ages of 24 and 55 and having 2 or more children can receive up to 2,949 shekels or about 65,000 rupees per month in income support. There are many other benefits as well, which are linked to how large the family size is, but will not go deep into them. Still, suffice it to say, the welfare system in Israel gives a very strong push to family formation through direct financial aid. But money alone cannot explain the whole phenomenon, because generous child benefits are not just unique to Israel. They've also been tried elsewhere, in countries like Hungary, Russia, Australia, and many others, but none of them have fertility rates anywhere close to Israeli Jews. You see, now we move on to the more spiritual aspect of the demographic question. To begin with, Israeli Jews have a keen sense of national loss over the annihilation and persecution of millions of their people in the 20th century. The memories of the Holocaust and to a lesser degree other historical pogroms and purges against them have been so etched into their minds that they will do anything to avoid a similar loss ever again. Israeli Jews number just about 6.8 million and are situated smack in the middle of a sea of 400 million hostile Arab Muslims. Thus, they know that the numbers are stacked against them and they have to keep up at the demographic game or face total destruction. This sense of foreboding, combined with the explicitly pro-natalist commandment in the Torah to be fruitful and multiply, lays the groundwork for a culture that values having a large number of children. The effect of the religious element is particularly strong, as we noted earlier with respect to the fertility rate of Ultra-Orthodox Haredi Jews being more than 6 children per woman. There is also a hypothesis that the less religious and secular Jewish population is also incentivized to have more children because of the need to remain numerically strong to avoid ceding further political power to the Haredim, who tend to vote for increased welfare and exemptions from military duty for themselves. All of this being said, in the end, we need to think hard about how exactly we can go about replicating the Israeli Jewish model for Hindus in India. Of course, we have different socio-economic conditions as well as an entirely different religion, so their model cannot exactly be copy-pasted in the Indian scenario. But there is undoubtedly still a lot we can learn from in this regard. With that, we'll conclude this video. Do let us know what you think by liking and commenting below, and subscribe to the channel for more such content in the future.